Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tarot Podcast. I am overjoyed to have my friends Deb and Joseph from This Jungian Life back again on the show. It is terrific to have you, and it is always a stimulating and just energetic conversation with the hosts of This Jungian Life. So welcome back.
Oh, pleasure
Thank
to
you.
be here. Your work is really wonderful and important.
Thank you so much. So our question today, very exciting, and one I've always wanted to ask a couple of Jungian experts. Is tarot a form of synchronicity? Go!
Just as a
Yeah.
refining of the question, I think you mean, are tarot readings
Yes.
a form
Yes.
of synchronicity?
Are tarot readings a form of synchronicity? Go!
Well, let's just back up for a second.
We need a definition, don't we?
Exactly. Let's say what synchronicity is, which is, sort of an interesting process in itself, since you can't quite nail it down.
Yes.
But what synchronicity is the acausal, non-cause and effect, and mysterious connecting principle that causes an event in the outside world to coincide meaningfully with a psychological state. And what Jung said is that it is a psychically conditioned relativity of time and space. Now, that is a really audacious thing. That is so audacious. Psychically conditioned connection between time, space, person. And the way we know that it's a synchronicity is that click. It can be really an experience filled with awe, and it can also be an experience that says, aha. So my old story about this, to give an example, is that we were living in New York. I was relatively young adult. I find New York absolutely overwhelming and destabilizing and so on, and I'm always a jangle. And I was very frustrated trying to find a job and not having any luck, and I was on the subway. And somebody had left a newspaper, and the newspaper was sort of folded in a very particular way, and they'd left a newspaper on the seat. And I thought to myself, I should go and pick it up. It's across the car from me. I have no idea what paper it is, whether it's the sports section or the financial section. I have no idea. I go and pick it up, and it is jobs wanted section, which tells you how old this is. And there was a job in all those listings, and I had this aha of, that's my job. That's it.
Incredible.
That's my job.
Wow.
And I applied and I got the job.
Oh my
And
heavens.
I've never forgotten it, but especially that feeling of being called to pick up this piece of newspaper, and that sudden certainty that it was my job.
Yes.
And there is a synchronicity, which is
Yes.
a connection between me and something that seems really pretty random, a newspaper with job listings on it.
Yes.
Now, everybody has had synchronicity experiences. Everybody has had them. That you think of somebody and then they call.
Like in the
Constantly.
moment they call.
Right, exactly. Of, I was thinking about my fifth grade teacher, and
And there they are.
why would and it's somebody unexpected, not your Aunt Agatha who calls every week anyway. But we know it because of that aha feeling. So anyway, that's my prelude and framing an example of synchronicity.
A psychically conditioned relativity between time
Yes.
and space. Wow.
Yeah.
So leaning into that as well, that Jung encountered this idea of a unified psychological field in mysticism and yogic texts, that the universe is made of chitti, of mind. But proving that or finding a way to language it in the way that a Western European mind could have a relationship to it was a different task. He began to analyze the dreams of a theoretical quantum physicist named Wolfgang Pauli. And Pauli's dreams were incredibly engaging for Jung, which, by the way, is something that I think people don't realize is your dreams are not only good for you, your dreams affect other people you tell them to, because it's a language. And I feel altered often by someone else's dream as I dig into it. So Jung is analyzing his dreams, and they begin to recognize a collaboration with the two of them. The writings around this are rather complicated, but the bold conclusion that both of them came to, Jung and Pauli, who is a scientist, is that not only was energy and matter mysteriously present at the beginning of all things, but energy, matter, and psyche were present as a universal, which is, Deb, going to this psychic conditioning, is that psyche is a force, a universal force present from the beginning. So when we think about synchronicity, which I think is different from intuition, intuition can definitely be connected to the unified field. But when we think of synchronicity, as Jung, I think, was thinking about it, is that in this collective field, like E equals mc squared, like energy and matter are exchangeable, there is a unified field that forces activate independently in this field, and as they press down for manifestation, they can simultaneously create numerous manifestations from a single force. And as those manifestations happen simultaneously, sometimes a human being is able to perceive that simultaneous manifestation of the force, as Deb was saying. Similarly, I have a quick story. The training process for me at a certain point was very, very turbulent, and I was like railing against the heavens and pounding on tables, and I don't want to be here, and who the hell do they think they are? And so, and I'm, in my den over here, and I'm really so hot and bothered. And then I walk into my dining room and I look in the porch, and a huge falcon has flown through my screen porch and is tangled in the nylon screen and is on the ground of the porch. And I'm just looking at each other, I was like, that is exactly how I feel. Like we are both having the same experience, and I've got to figure out a way to help this thing. So there I am with long barbecue tongs, trying not to get my arms shredded. We did work it out. But I don't know how to say it. Maybe it's the spirit of frustration, or is in all places. Who knows?
But you see, the key is that it was so meaningful.
Yes.
That Joseph got it as meaningful versus, another time we might be taking a walk along in the woods and come across a creature that got all tangled up in some branches or something. Yeah. And then we come home and we say, hey, you know what? There was when I was walking, there was a rabbit, and I kind of reached in and got his feet out of the snares that he was in with fallen branches. And it's interesting, and people go, really? But when you have that aha experience of this is meaningful, it's a meaningful connection between me and where I am and how I am, and this falcon or hawk
or newspaper.
We're both in the same place. Yes, the newspaper.
Yes.
It's that spark of recognition that is the clue.
100%. I'll share a brief story of one of my own, which was when I was a teenager. I was living in New York, very, as you said, overwhelming place. And I was walking around Lincoln Center because at the time I was a piano student at Juilliard. And yes, just as the pre-college, not the not the full bore, but it was a very difficult time. And my mom had died, my father had remarried, the household was a disaster, and I was feeling very isolated and alone, walking at night through Lincoln Center on my way to the train to go home, and all the way across the plaza, some people saw me and they called Susie, and they started waving frantically, and I thought, I'm not expecting to meet anybody. And, but I thought, okay, I'll go over there and I'll go see what's going on. And I go, and they're like a bunch of kids about my age, also Asian, no idea who they are. And they say, oh, we're all bewildered. And apparently they were looking for their friend Susie, who had not shown up. And they had a ticket for her for 6 Degrees of Separation. And so I went to see 6 Degrees of Separation instead of that other Susan that day. Right. And like on so many layers, this, I just couldn't stop laughing through this entire performance. Poor Stockard Channing, she must have wondered like who the hell was cracking up in the backyard, because it was just one of those things, that miracles that happen. Right. So anyway, our various synchronicities we have shared at this point. And one thing I want to ask you about is, as I understand it, and I don't know if I have this exactly right, it's something I read in Marie-Louise von Franz, I think. I think that Jung believed that the more investment you have, emotional investment, the more libido you have invested in the situation, the more intense and sort of on target a synchronicity is likely to be. If you're just in sort of a casual frame of mind, that something like that is, first of all, number one, do I have that right? And number two, do you think that's true for a tarot reading as well?
That the emotional intensity in the individual can kind of
constellate,
a kind of attention to synchronicity. I think that first of all, I think there's a big difference between being psychic, being intuitive, and synchronicity.
Yes.
Right. They all are manifestations of a relationship to the unified field, but they're different kinds of phenomenon. So I would just say that synchronicities are happening all the time, and they have nothing to do with human beings. Human beings don't cause synchronicity, because if they did, then it would be a causal relationship.
Right. Right.
So I think intrinsic to Jung's idea is that this is something that simply occurs as part of just nature. That simultaneous phenomenon simply occur. And sometimes human beings are in a place where they can notice it, and in that moment, it can be extraordinary. Now, can we depend on that happening, or even assume that it's happening because we're doing a tarot reading? And does the emotional intensity of the individual or the reader make that more likely? And that is a very interesting question, and I don't know the answer to it. Like, one would have to really do a study of it.
What I'm wondering about, and that's all I'm doing is just wondering, is whether there is something in one's own psychic state that is where we're something even that we're not conscious of every minute of the day, like my story about having a hard time in New York and can't find a job. Yes. So there's a low but persistent level of angst going on. Does it help to activate something? Would it make a difference? And I think it would. If I were to go to a tarot reading feeling like, this will be interesting, let me give it a shot. versus I am really looking for some help with a life question that is important to me and that matters. And I'm reaching out and I am trusting something out there in the field, the mystery of something more. I'm open and my receptors are, blinking with green lights.
Yes.
Of that I'm somehow ready for connection versus just wandering in the produce aisle at the grocery store.
Indeed. You didn't cause that newspaper to materialize. Joseph didn't cause that hawk to appear, and yet that was intensely meaningful at that particular moment.
Yes.
So looping it back into tarot readings, could some tarot readings be evidence of synchronicity, that a certain force is showing up in a space?
Yeah, I
in
think
that
so.
person and in the reader? Sometimes. Could we predict it? No, because that would be causal.
Yeah. So that goes back to what you were saying, Joseph, about a difference between synchronicity, intuition, and psychic ability. Of that, your intention. I mean, I'll ask you, Susie, of what do you think? But your intention is clearly, just what Joseph was speaking about, is to be in service and to attune to something. So what do you think?
Oh, well, I'll tell you that one of the things that I take for granted as a tarot reader is that I call it living the poem, that synchronicity is all around, and that every time we draw cards, they are going to be meaningful every single time. That there's no casual, there's no meaningless tarot reading. There's even from the little cards I draw at the beginning of the day to the ones I draw for the person who is in the middle of a divorce, it's always meaningful. And I assume that it will be meaningful, and I believe, just through experience, not through theory, that it's the lack of causal explanation. The lack of causal explanation is crucial to the meaningful aspect. Like, for me, that definition of synchronicity where without cause, it's acausal, is at the core of it, because this is the reason I do tarot rather than astrology, or at least the reason I chose when I was young, because the randomness of the act of shuffling to me was an obliterator of cause, right? There is no way that there is a causal relationship between what I draw, and my intentions. And because when that happens, I nevertheless see cards that inevitably, not once, not sometimes, but always have meaning. To me, that is the kind of synchronicity that we can court, the kind of synchronicity that arises around tarot. And in fact, I'll tell you another little story, which was that when I was first starting tarot, I was quite doubtful, as many people are. There was a lot of second guessing, a lot of trying to learn it and trying to apply the ego, to these cards and make them work for me. And it was not going very well. And I remember I was on a bus with my Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, going on a ride to Cape Cod, as it happened, and I was so fed up and annoyed at my tarot deck, and I said, "Look, tarot, do I really even need to be doing this anymore? What's the point?" And I drew two cards, and they were the Magician and the Strength card. Now, I look at those cards, And I didn't know one thing from the next about tarot, few months in. I looked at them and I saw the infinity signs over their heads, and I saw the magic of the musician and the strength of the strength. And I said, okay, I don't know what that is, but that's definitely something. I'm going to stick with this. So, and that's tarot. Tarot speaks to you when you need it, and if you need it every day, it's still going to speak to you in some way. So, the intensity of the investment or the libido, I go back and forth on that question all the time, because I do believe that we live in a world of constant, as Joseph said, constantly occurring synchronicity. I don't think you need to wait for the big thing to happen, or to need the job, or to be frustrated in your studies to experience synchronicity. But, perhaps, as you said, Deb, maybe it does make you more open.
Yeah, it makes you more open or does something. But, even hearing that story, I could feel my own resonance to it. So, and here are the two cards.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
With the infinity sign, it's sort of why would you draw these two cards?
Right?
Right?
Right? Why would I draw those two?
Why, and that there is the meaningful connection that something is encouraging you. Stick with it. And that I think is huge. Of that something comes to meet us. Something loves us.
Yeah. Yeah. And love is not transactional. It's not causal. It's just there. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I really wonder, one of the things I wonder, since I've had many experiences as a tarot reader of, that were in their own way as striking as, Jung's experience with the scarab beetle with his client. Similar things happen with tarot clients when they see a card that they themselves have drawn, and they turn it over, and it's like they don't even know where to start, because it's their minds are blown apart in the moment. So, so I want to ask you, as professionals, how would you use tarot in an analytic session?
I never have, and I certainly I haven't studied, and I'm not sufficiently grounded in it myself. Just from a somehow central place in myself of to do that. So I don't. We work with dreams. I'm saying
Symbol
Jungians
systems, absolutely,
and symbol systems and all of that. But I don't utilize other symbol systems in my work with people. What about you, Joseph?
I think that I've used tarot in many different ways for about 47 years, so it's really like imprinted on my imagination really powerfully. So one of the ways that tarot is useful to me is if I'm in a session and I'm feeling flummoxed, like something's happening, I can't quite track it, I'm not sure what's happening. What I will do, and this will be an eye-open reverie, I will cast my attention upward, and I will ask the divine to show me a tarot image that will help my consciousness attune to what needs to be perceived. And again, because I know them well enough that a card will appear, I will ponder that, and not all the time, but often enough, that does kind of jostle me into a particular attitude, a particular perception that can be meaningful or useful. So that's one way it can be present. For me to actually shuffle the cards or ask the client to shuffle the cards, I would need to know that the person is particularly interested in that symbol system, and I would need to believe that it would be psychologically helpful for them.
Yes.
To be
For many
engaging
people, that might not work at all.
no,
Yes.
or even alienate them from themselves.
Indeed.
One of the things that has been strangely freeing during COVID when all of my clients moved onto Zoom. Right now, basically, you're seeing me from my collarbone up. I'm not sure my clients know I have legs. So that's the
Yeah.
uncanny thing.
Yeah.
Right now, I can be talking to you, shuffling tarot cards, and laying a card down right in the middle of a session for my own guidance without spooking an analyst or even having to reference it explicitly, but jogging my own imagination or my own intuition in a particular way. And that is something I probably do once or twice a day if I have a full uh, lineup of clients.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
it's something I will turn to when I'm feeling stumped,
Mm-hmm.
or I need
Yeah.
something else to help me think differently when I'm kind of in a rut, sort of way.
Fascinating. Yeah.
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 And that I really want to pick up on that and kind of highlight it, which is it helps us think differently. It gets us out of our rational, let me figure it out, let me problem solve this mind.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us, it's a connection with the unconscious. It's a connection with nonverbal knowing. And it just sort of helps us change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we can change the channel in a lot of ways. I can go for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm in a different state of mind when I come back from a walk.
Absolutely.
I do an errand often in the middle of the day, just exactly to sort of hit the refresh button.
Mm-hmm.
But if I choose a card from the deck or another system, you know, such as I Ching or whatever, it really jostles me into a different mode
Mm-hmm.
of understanding, perceiving, and it's very, very useful, I think, for everybody.
I think that's very true. I think that's very true. And it doesn't even have to be tarot, you know, in terms of
No, it
jostling a
doesn't have to
person's
be.
mindset. It could be Brian Eno's oblique strategies or,
Yeah.
or it could be, a handful of pebbles. Yeah.
I think we're also talking about using tarot in a particular fashion
Mm-hmm.
relative to projection,
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm.
right? So there are 78 images, and particularly the Rider-Waite deck, they're particularly evocative. If we were to memorize the standard assignations, the interpretive assignations, there would really need to be some higher force that's aligned because the cards are being read very specifically and diagnostically.
Mm.
Now, back in the day, let's say with the Golden Dawn or these turn of the century occult fraternities, they would do very multi-hour readings, and then
Yes.
they would do test cases. And if the test case didn't land for the person, it meant that the operation, the forces were not aligned with the operation, and they would stop the reading
Mm.
at any number of points where things stopped lining up. So they were looking for some evidence that this unified force was in operation and that it wasn't always.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way.
Mm.
What we're talking about more frequently is allowing an image to arrive and then allowing the image to stimulate the kind of aesthetic imagination of both
Yes.
the
Yes.
reader and the recipient, which
Yes.
allows psyche to just speak. And the
Right.
unconscious is intelligent, and we're all intuitive. So
Yes.
that gives us a lot of room. But in that way, we are projecting hidden unconscious information onto a powerful image. And when we verbalize it, sometimes we find that's incredibly helpful to us or the other
Yes.
person.
Yes, that reminds me of something that Marie-Louise von Franz said, which is that in a palm reading, the reader, the medium is projecting the unconscious onto the lines of the palm. Similarly. Yeah.
Which can be
Mhm.
fantastically
Fantastically
revelatory
accurate.
and
Hmm.
helpful,
Hmm.
very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Well, I could talk about this all day, and yet
I know.
time is continuing to move on, so we must say goodbye to this question for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Oh, thank you too, Susie.